Welcome to the ITSP Magazine Podcast Network. You're tuning into an episode of the Redefining Society Podcast, hosted by Marco Ciappelli. Let's face it, the future is now. We live in a hybrid analog-digital society, and we must stop ignoring it or pretending that technology is not affecting us. The line between the physical and virtual worlds has become a figment of our imagination. On it, we are continually performing a dangerous balancing act, juggling convenience, privacy, freedom, security, technology, society, culture, and even the future of humanity. There is no better place than here, and no better time than now to muse on our relationship with technology and how to redefine what society means in this new age.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Devo unlocks the full value of machine data for the world's most instrumented enterprises. The Devo Data Analytics Platform addresses the explosion in volume of machine data and the crushing demands of algorithms and automation. Learn more at devo.com.
What were you saying, Rafael?
Recording.
No.
So, Raf, you were talking about
the landscape of music has changed.
Legal and financial,
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, it's driven by the changes in technology. But you're also right; it's driven then us reacting to that, and younger generations realizing that they can consume music in different manners. And you know, it's honestly, it's things like on the one hand, U2 going and doing a residency in Las Vegas, and there've always been residencies, but YouTube is effectively.
Marco, you don't like YouTube, or you don't like YouTube, or you don't like the idea of people doing
I like them too much to actually, but that they're doing that.
Here, I'll throw in to the notion of consumption changing. I'll throw in a counterpoint for folks to think about, which is that TikTok is changing the way that music is consumed by younger people. And part of it is the fact that TikTok has a separate music app. But another part of it is that TikTok has a decent way to control their own algorithms and music consumption, where they will take songs that are from 5 to 12 years old, take clips from those songs, make those available to streamers, and they will basically reintroduce and create hits. You had, for example, over the summer, TikTok influencers all taking the hit, which I think was from like 8 years ago. There's a French artist who did a song called Makeba, about Mary Makeba. But you had all these folks basically dancing and lip syncing to roughly, 3 to 8 seconds of an audio clip, and then everyone going off and listening to that song that nobody had really listened to for ages because TikTok put it into their algorithm.
Show us, Raf. I want to see the moves.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, but on the other hand, you also got people like Taylor Swift on John Mayer drawing thousands of people into stadiums. Well, Taylor Swift is still very much entertainment focused. I mean, she's got great music. She's also a great entertainer. But you look like John Mayer, purely guitar. Oh, Pearl Jam. I mean, I just saw a Pearl Jam concert. No fancy frills. It's straight up music. 2.5 hours of pure music. That's the kind of music I remember. But I also remember Pink Floyd, right? Pink Floyd. I mean, if you look at it, the brilliant music, and then they had massive light shows, and then and they had the whole storytelling through music, through the wall concerts and stuff like that. So I think they probably started they started a lot of things. They were the first for a lot of things, but I think the whole telling a story through their music and really entertaining people, that was it started in the 70s, and I think we've just taken it, given that technology is advanced to a level where it's become cheaper to produce these massive shows, potentially has driven, and the fact that we as audiences are demanding more. If you're going to pay like $200 for a ticket, I want, unless I'm going to listen to Eddie Vedder, I want a big light in a song. And
I'm sorry, you said unless I'm going to listen to Eddie Vedder. Pink Floyd can do a show, but also amazing musicians. So we can get very kind of polemic here about, are we covering something? Are we adding sauces on the dish because it's not such a good dish? And so, I don't know. Madonna wasn't the best singer. She kind of created the whole show thing.
Let's dive into a little bit more Pink Floyd.
She was an entertainer, yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing about Pink Floyd is that, like, they didn't wholly create the rock opera, but that notion of the concept album and then of taking the elements from the concept album and putting them onto stage. The Who did some of that. Rolling Stones did some of that. I mean, there were more obscure bands, and Yes and Ozric Tentacles and all sorts of folks, but that notion, if you think about it, kind of got shrunk down and made bite-size over time, to where it became, new generations wanted it to be meme-worthy. You didn't have to have the big concept, but everything in music needed to have a concept in order to be digested. And if anything, we have much more of a sense now that musicians are celebrities and that they engage in the public sphere. And then you have things like Taylor Swift making news for dating a football player. And, the latest thing is the meme of, there's literally now a thing called Swifty Sauce, where she was off, supporting her boyfriend playing a football game. And there was a tweet from her tour that was Taylor Swift enjoying chicken bites with ketchup and seemingly ranch. And ketchup and seemingly ranch was literally just released by Kraft as a new flavor, ketchup and seemingly ranch, which they also apparently do previously called cranch, but they're calling it ketchup and seemingly ranch because they know that Taylor Swift fans will buy it up in ridiculous amounts. And so there's this
let me put it
commercial synergy where basically if an artist does something, they go play the MSG Sphere, or they go somewhere, they do a thing, they project onto social media, and it increases their sales, it increases the sales of who they work with, and it's all about commoditizing them as a brand. For better or for worse.
So I've got two questions to that, Raf. I mean, and this is all of us. I mean, is music today become more of a marketing? I mean, it always was, but now it seems to be more and more because the heroic nature of the hero worship that most musicians enjoy. So it's become more of a marketing machine. And two, now if you look at the thing that U2 did in Vegas, if you take U2 out of there and you put, let's say you put a band which is not that big, would the special effects and the visuals, all of that, would that have the same effect? Or would people still go?
Well,
if I take my guitar, my four chords,
the power of the U2 brand to promote the Sphere. Sphere, obviously, we're talking about the Sphere,
right?
We haven't been talking about U2, but that's. If it's a local band, we're not going to be talking about it much, except for the eyesore that it might be in the town.
All right, so let me put
this
this
into. For me, Sean, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, of course. You can just lip syncing. Let me just put this into context because, people probably have heard us before. It's Once Upon a Time Tomorrow. We've talked about AI. We've talked about the strike in the writing industry, in the entertainment industry, and movies. We talk about something that was a show that we just recorded, me and Carrie. And by the time that you listen to this, that one would be actually live. We talk about privacy, and we have been itching to talk about music because, as you can tell, we're pretty passionate about music. And I think each one has his own kind of music, kind of opinion. And this conversation came up from the Sphere, which we already mentioned in the conversation, just started to have shows in Las Vegas. Is this incredible piece of technology that cost, if I understand exactly, 2.4 billions, which is not little, 516 foot wide, which is 157 meter wide, high resolution LED screen, the largest on earth, inside and outside, with 17,600 seat audience. So made for music. And the question that I had on a post a couple of days ago, it was like, music or an entire concept, different concept of entertainment, which is kind of what we already discussing. So is a music not enough anymore, or is completely different the way we consume it? So,
or is it even a concert? Is it even a concert?
Is it a concert?
Is it immerse? Is it a virtual?
Well, let's think of it this way. The Sphere is to music as IMAX is to film. In that, so whether that holds or not, MSG wants to do more spheres. They are looking at it as a way to upsell ticket prices and to build a more immersive production that an artist can go off and do a thing for a while, and it's one way to have a giant stage show that can basically, frankly, say that it's bigger than anything else. It's like this is the biggest thing until they make one bigger.
So the thing that strikes me, and maybe it's depending on what concert you go to, this might change, but I look around at others in the venue, and are they watching? I looked at a video that I recorded maybe 6 years ago in San Francisco. It was the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Oh no, I'm sorry, Blink-182. And I have a video because I was recording through my camera, and in front of me, between me and the band, were hundreds of other people recording on their cameras. So I'm wondering, is anybody experiencing anything? Or have we arrived to a point where it's all about, I was there, I have proof that I was there, and therefore I'm cool. And it's more about me projecting that to others more than experiencing it. I don't know. And
I think it's become more of that.
I don't know that the Sphere changes that in it. What's that?
Right.
Well, so I agree. I mean, that began, and so if you've ever gone to a Tool concert or a Perfect Circle concert, the first thing Maynard James Keenan says when he comes out is, put away your bloody phones or you'll be thrown out. He literally will not allow you to film it unless the last song. It's the last song of the night. That's when he says, okay, now you can pull your phone down and record this. And the whole thing is that, hey, we worked a couple of years to produce this thing for you. If all you're going to do is pull out your phone and not watch it, like, what's the point? Like, bloody hell. We'll be releasing YouTube videos of it. Go watch it. The live show experience is completely gone. So, but to your point, Sean, I think not just music. I think a lot of stuff has become that, right? I mean, it's all about record something, post it on Instagram, and tell people I was here because therefore I'm cool.
I'm drafting on their coolness.
but think about this also. Other bands and other groups actively encourage people to pull out their phones And if you think about it, there used to be a notion, let's say, let's go back to the 70s or 80s, of people holding up lighters, even to the extent that you would have people who didn't smoke who would take a lighter to a concert, and they would hold up the lighter to be able to, it's audience participation. And so now you'll have bands that will ask people to pull out their phones to tap the button to have the light that projects on their phone like a lighter.
Okay. So I'm going to try to jump on both. So one, the camera. I have regret many times to be one of those. I have seen concert where I finished, Guns N' Roses, U2 in Pasadena as well, that I'm like, I'm an idiot. I just watched 1/4 of the concert through my phone, and I'm here. I'm not experiencing these people. So I've learned the lesson, and now I try not to do that. So in a way,
that's why you have GoPro.
True.
You bring somebody else with you to do it.
Right. And everybody's like that. So the lighter, it's a little bit different because you're part of the event, participating in that. And I want to make a reference to this. Again, Rose Bowl, Pasadena a few years ago, Coldplay. Great, amazing concert. Thanks to my wife that brought me there. And they were giving some computer control, cheap bracelet. We would light up to the beat of the song. And people, instead of having the lighter, it's next generation of the lighter, you just go up and the entire freaking Rose Bowl was beautiful. But you're part of the show. You're not estranging yourself from it, like I think you do, like Sean said, when you're filming it. So bring this to a show where the Sphere advertised it as, we don't tell people what to watch. They watch whatever they want, which means there is the stage, and all of a sudden I'm fascinated by, a planet that is exploding on the right-hand side. I think it's great, but it's not a concert. That's what I'm trying to
So
say.
is this the next generation of MTV then, where how they had music videos where you music was more of a providing the soundtrack for the actual video that was playing. And I think, again, Tool did a great job. They had these crazy animations where the music would sort of, is that what we're looking at right now? Is the Sphere the next generation of immersive MTV?
Well, so I think that the Sphere is a particular
live immersive MTV.
Yeah, but if you think of it, it'll be interesting to see who goes into the Sphere because U2, for example, is kind of a band for our generation. I would be curious to see if a band, let's say like Blackpink or Taylor Swift goes into the Sphere, because they may not need to. And also their audience might not go into that. I think that we're seeing some splintering and bifurcation of different types of music entertainment as musicians try to find different ways to grow and to make a living or make a few extra million. And so, maybe the Sphere is a way for, there've always been artists going into Las Vegas and doing a residency. And maybe the Sphere is a next stage of that, of spectacle, that, not that it has to just be the Sphere.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know what the future holds for it, but I can envision the Sphere being a platform that has cutting edge technology capable of doing whatever the band wants. And so to switch it now, the band has an environment to perform within that does a lot of stuff for them. And perhaps they can focus on the music and actually performing. Yeah. And the platform and the venue actually enhances what they're really good at. I don't know.
So I actually want to bring that back to YouTube.
That's an interesting.
Well, so let's bring it back to U2 because, so being frank, I'm not in Las Vegas. I haven't seen the show, which just got started, but I read the reviews and I was interested also because I know a few people who work on the Sphere. And a year ago, I had folks who were like, hey, do you want to do something on this? I was like, well, we're a game developer. I don't quite know what we would do on that. But it was intriguing because I realized that there's the kind of attract mode of the actual Sphere to we have a thing in Vegas and it's best viewed from far away and you see the Sphere and it's huge. It's a giant marble in the middle of Las Vegas. And there's development for that. And it is a platform. And then there's development for the thing inside because in the reviews, what they stress is that the band has very little on stage. They have a stage that was literally designed by Brian Eno, who's worked with U2 before, to be a minimalist stage so that the band has exactly what they need, and then everything else projects onto the screen around them. And so it is absolutely they're not trying to bring in props. They're basically going, experience our music, and then look up.
You know what it is? It's the real life metaverse. So you go in there, you are immersed into this universe, kind of like the idea of the IMAX, to be in the movie. I mean, when you said video games, I'm like, you could have a game, like electronic game competitions in there where people experience within the battlefield or the drone race or whatever. I mean, I think it's amazing.
They have the
but it's not music.
Yeah. So and this is where it gets to spectacle. So one of the things that Gary brought up when he was describing it and was like, it is kind of going to become a platform, is he was like, we have the ability to there's a network structure that's set up to do really robust Bluetooth, and everyone who goes in could potentially download an app, and we could take signals from everyone's phones, and everyone's phone could be a controller. And we got into philosophical discussions about if we've got 20,000 people within this thing or whatever it holds, can we make useful signals for interaction between 20,000 people and stuff on the screen? It's the interaction between one screen, and it can have different spaces, but how do you you have to design differently for interaction with a crowd. And you can have interaction, but it has to be very limited and very simple. And at that point, I was like, it's completely different from the virtual concerts that we've been doing. Let me just think about it for a while, because the notion of an interactive back and forth between the screen and the crowd while the band is playing is an intriguing thing, but it's new territory. And I don't want to just suggest something and have it fall flat. And I kind of like to see one of these things before we suggest designing for one. Because we could, and it would be intriguing, but I also don't want to take away from the band, which should be the important thing there.
So that was going to be my thing. Is the purity of music gone then? So now you're basically, if I'm going to a concert, then part of the experience is me worrying about how much of an influence I'll have, or get 10 of my friends, hey, at this point, do this so that we can push this up on the stage. Right? Is that what concerts are becoming? And then where does music fit?
You draw a line. I think you draw a line. So again, and then I want to look back into how technology changed music. If we have time, I have a feeling we're going to have more time. But may I say something?
Sorry,
Rafael, based on what Carrie said, so classical music, I think, is the perfect example. You go to a concert of classical music, unless it's something special, there is no background. You may have candlelight, but you want an empty, the Philharmonic. I want a good audio. I don't want to have distraction. I want to hear every single piece of instrument. That is enough. And enough, it's the diminutive in a way. It's why I am there. It's one sensor experience, which is the music. Then you can play with that. Hollywood Bowl, they do this LA Philharmonic where they show Bugs Bunny and other character, and they play the soundtrack live. They do that kind of stuff. It's not the first time. It's on a screen. It's fun, but it's already like, okay, it's kind of a concert. Maybe it's not. I mean, but I'm still there for the music. So I love this. I love what it can be. But I think, again, there is a big line that you have to draw between a concert and a show. It's not the Cirque du Soleil. I go to the Cirque du Soleil, I want to be blown away by a lot of that stuff. But if you put me like digital images in the back, which kind of happened to the Beatles show, I get distracted a little bit. It's still cool, but it's not music. And
I think for me personally, when I go to concerts and there are giant screens, and I love to see, sometimes they'll do a close-up of the guitarist playing a lead sequence or the drummer. So you're focusing on the artist themselves, and you want to see that. But if you replace that with animations and other stuff, and you're like, okay, for me, it's like, it's in moderation, I guess it's okay. And again, I've not been inside this sphere, so I'm speaking completely without having any experience of that.
We saw you two heading this way, Marco, with the Joshua Tree concert, right? The big screen.
But Marco, you brought up an interesting distinction, which is a concert from a show. And I think that that's important, because I think that we're going to see more different types of things that are going to take music into being a show, where it is about the spectacle, it is about the experience. Some of them may be interactive, some of them may be passive, some of them might have audience participation or not, but they're stretching the boundaries to try to figure out how they can use modern technology to stretch the price that they ask for a ticket, but also to stretch the notion of what a musical engagement is when you go, and even to have you think, does the concert come to me or do I go to the concert? This thing, because think about that. Now people are thinking, do I go to Las Vegas to see U2? There's always been residencies, but with greater spectacle, they may think it's easier to go, well, they physically can't move this thing somewhere else. If you want to see it, you have to go there. There's another thing that is somewhat correlatable to this, which is ABBA. I don't know how much you guys have been looking at it, but ABBA worked with ILM for several years during the pandemic to build a residency in London that is absolutely different but correlatable to U2 in Las Vegas, because ABBA had effectively virtual avatars built of them, of their younger versions. And they set up a concert where what is projected on the stage are their younger versions. They are not visible as their physical versions. They have massive screens viewable from different directions. They have virtual versions of themselves projected because they are playing their classics from the 70s and 80s, and it is their younger versions presented virtually in the real on stage. Spectacle, show.
Wow. Are they even playing? Why bother?
And yeah, like at a certain point you go like, so like they have it set up for essentially virtual puppetry so that they are singing live, but their avatars are physically viewable. We don't quite have holographic technology to where that can be viewed without, that can be viewed directly, but they have the closest approximation to that. But it's not a just press button. It is, they are behind the stage, but because their physical bodies have aged, they decided to present themselves as they were in their prime.
Wow, I didn't know that. So I think the question here could be this, and we haven't even, it's my usual question, what drives what, right? Is it technology that's like, this is available, do something with it? Do we really need it? Or is a natural evolution of what the art could have been? So is music looking for this, for other venue to express yourself? Or it's just because it's available, let's do it, and the audience buy it. I mean, I think this because before we start recording, I found an article that is going to give the history of music. Like, first it was live music, 1800 to 940 phonographs and record player. Then we go into cassette. Then we go in vinyl. Then we go into digital. Then we go in synthesizer before that. And I mean, there is a lot we can talk about. So I don't know, maybe it's just the natural evolution of society and we are embracing. And then there is the old school like us that I just want to go in a small venue and hear the noise of the guitar strings when you go from one chord to another. I don't know. Discuss.
Well, I think so, Mark. I mean, the stuff you pointed out, the vinyl, the tapes. I mean, that's the mode of consumption. I think all of that has moved on to now streaming, and to an extent, I think vinyl's had a massive resurgence over the last few years, and I think more and more people are getting back into vinyl. And I think we all want our own personalized playlists or personalized albums, and that revolution came from streaming. And I think with vinyl, I think some of the stuff that's probably coming back is, the concept albums like Rush used to produce and like Led Zeppelin used to produce and Floyd used to produce. So you would buy the LP and then you listen to it end to end because every song was either interconnected or was really great. With streaming, okay, you release an album, you've got 4 songs, which are good. So you only listen to those 4 songs. And even if you look at Spotify, it tells you, hey, these are the top songs by this artist. So you don't even have to listen to all of their albums. They've already sort of curated that for you. So it's definitely changing how we produce music and even consume music. So I think that's that part of it. But in terms of technology like the Sphere, so my question there is it going to enhance musicmanship or musicianship, or is it going to allow us to take mediocrity and hide it behind this massive visual experience where now, because you've got multiple senses being sort of attacked, and you're not able to pay attention to, okay, that's just like the 5 chords he's playing for every damn song.
Well,
but visuals are different.
I think the question is whether you see Nickelback in the Sphere next.
Let's put this back on the shoulders of the artists, because I think artists first and foremost create. I think most true artists create for themselves, with perhaps then the idea that what they created would impact somebody in a certain way, and so they're reaching deep, creating something from within, presenting that others connect with it and resonate with it and have feelings from that. So I think in its purest form, I think that still exists. And in the giving you two the benefit of the doubt and others that go into the Sphere, is it that what they're pulling out and creating and I'll say leveraging this platform for is still designed to get people to feel and think something based on what they created it for in the first place? I don't think that goes away. I think maybe the technology impacts our ability to absorb it or to find that thing, or we're overwhelmed with too many feelings and experiences. But I think from an artist perspective, I want to believe that trueness is still there at the core.
I think that there's a much wider range of expression than there used to be. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It sometimes is complicated. And I think that it means that musicians are trying to figure out where they slot in, or has their place changed in life as they grow. But the artists, for example, that go into and do an ABBA thing, like ABBA financed that themselves. They had somebody who reached out to ILM and said, make us younger. Find the fountain of youth and grow us younger. My understanding is that the MSG Sphere reached out and said, like, okay, we're going to set up the slate for the next few years. You two, we want you to be first. You're a good one to launch this. So, you have artists who have established on a certain level who go, I can do this thing. This is my initiative, or they reached out. You're not going to have a random indie artist go into the sphere because they can't command the space. I don't think that
it's going to become like Wembley.
Yeah, but
like Wembley, that you can't just go and perform in Wembley unless you are like really big artist, right?
But you don't have. I don't think that you ever have the small space of the artist that goes and plays in the club. We need that to kind of start things off. But what we also recognize is that there's a point where record companies started to do research and find people on YouTube, and then they started to do it on TikTok. And sometimes that becomes a way for people to grow. When we worked with Lil Nas X, we were cognizant of the fact that Sony found him on TikTok. He was working in a grocery store and he was doing social media and he was doing his thing. Like, he was talented and he knew what to do. But he was discovered in a social media space because he presented something where they said, I think we can see how we can grow this. And there was points where they thought, okay, he might be a one-hit wonder and it might just be this, Old Town Road. But hey, Billy Cyrus likes working with him, and they kind of grow that thing and continue to build it. But everyone was still going like, is he just a one-hit wonder? But then he was actually a master at social media. And he also had pretty good musical chops, and he was a professional. He was pretty damn good and understood how to work with mocap. He could sit down and do photogrammetry with us, but also he went on past us and the virtual concert that he did with us. And then he went off and was like, okay, he killed it at the MTV VMAs with Jack Harlow, and he's got way bigger than Jack Harlow did. And then he went off and, like, one of the things I saw him in a year ago was like Sony made a deal with Riot Games and League of Legends, and they had him do a song, and they promoted it by doing a silly thing where he becomes the president of League of Legends. And he showed that he could do comedy on screen as a celebrity, and that he had a good song to back it up. And so, like, there are more avenues for artists to grow, but they still have to kill it every time, and they can still fall by the wayside every time.
Well, the time has changed. I mean, you made a good point very quickly. Before, you need to prove that you were not only good, but marketable. You'll have somebody come in the club, the Whiskey Go-Go or wherever, and say, okay, we'll give you a record deal. And then they own pretty much everything about you until you're big enough that you become really, really big. Now, they bet on sure win. Rarely they get somebody that is unknown. They want to say, well, you're bringing already millions of followers. You got this thing that has been streamed 1 million times. I don't know the name of that guy, country guy that just became famous for one song. And I'm sure he's good. Right? I'm sure it's good. I mean, you still need to be good. You can't fake it all the way. If you want to go play live, you better be good enough, right? So the entire streaming has changed the way that we do business. Writers is the same thing. If you can throw a couple of chapters out there and people like it, it's kind of like record companies don't take risk anymore. They may make less money, but they don't take risk.
So things have changed for the four of us, right? But if somebody's 16, this is what they know, right?
Oh, God, yes.
So what they're experiencing now isn't different from before in their mind, and so they're not latching on to nostalgia or some memory of 20 years ago at some concert, right? So. And they're experiencing life and engaging with their peers in different ways and all over the world, perhaps not even in a physical location. So I almost wish we had somebody younger on this
to get their perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it, Sean. I did an interview with a 24 CEO that launched an app that creates virtual AI driven background and morph your face. And I made that point. I said, but what about photography? What about the old time when we were using film and enhance that from a raw perspective? And well, this is the point. I said that you show yourself in Paris in front of the Tour Eiffel. Why you never experienced that? And it's like, yeah, but the younger generation don't think that way. And I felt very, very, very old. but I said,
they don't.
Damn it.
It's influencer. It's influencer generation. It's the same reason why people are taking pictures and selfies at concerts and stuff. It's more about telling their followers online, people they are connected online. I was here, that's why I'm cool, and not the actual experience. It's more about getting validation from that, which may be what the next generation of people are going to be like.
Well, and to bring this back to Pink Floyd, at a certain point,
always back to Pink Floyd.
at a certain point, and I know that we're all old fans of Pink Floyd, but it's worth thinking about that era of music as being viewed like classical music for younger generations. That they view classic rock as like classical music because it's this kind of curious thing that the dinosaurs listened to that is longer form and more complex structurally, but not necessarily as catchy or fast or loud as they can listen to now. And it's music for an older generation.
They can't handle that stuff. Come on.
But if you think of it, people don't tend to do that anymore. That notion of a concept album, it's absolutely even easier to do it now because you don't have the limits of a physical media, and you can go, I'm going to create my rock opera and it's going to be 2 hours and 5 minutes. And you don't have to go, what's the limit of what I can put onto a record or onto a CD? People used to have to go, this is the maximum amount that I can put onto a CD, or, I can do a double album. But they had to fit it. They had to fit the songs and the album to what they could ship. And now they can just go, I can make anything I want to. But the vast majority of them are going, can I make a 3-minute song that I can have 5-second clips from that people can meme to, and
it's the attention span,
do a dance in front of a camera.
Right. Well, the limitations now has moved from physical medium to the attention span of people. That's what you want. The attention span and what you're competing with. Your 3-minute or 2-minute song and video is competing with 5 million others because there's no barrier to entry, or it's lowered, for example, and then you're competing with that, and so you're so gone are the days of remember Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick? The whole album was one song.
No, you're so old, dude. Jethro Tull. Of course, I remember Jethro Tull. I have a vinyl here if you want to see it. Yeah.
I have seen Tull live. So yes.
There you go. Yeah. So here, talking. But see how we're proud of these, and it is a different generation. Sean plays the philosopher on that note, and I'm so proud of him. Like I taught him well. I mean that was the whole point. It's like we're talking as a different generation, but I also feel myself lucky, and maybe who knows, the younger generation in I don't know 40 years they can have the same conversation and be like, dude, this shit now, it's not good. I remember when we used to go to Sphere, we used to put stuff on TikTok. That was cool, right? And who knows what they're doing in 40 years from now. But we got to experience that from analog to digital. I'm sorry, I love that. And I'm not saying, I love a lot of new band. Not many, but some I do. I don't like when they use an auto-tuner, but...
Yeah, but you made a very, very interesting point, Marco. I think we are a unique generation in the sense that we have heard and experienced what our parents and grandparents have listened to and experienced and have moved along. And we had our own thing in the 70s and 80s, and now we are experiencing what our kids and grandkids are experiencing. So we are sort of like, we're sort of straddling between both, leaning more towards our own youth, but understanding. And to Sean's point, the kids today, and to your point, the kids today don't even know that world. So for them, this is what it is. And I mean, at some point we should have a discussion about cars and driverless cars and all of that stuff. Because I remember I just spoke recently to a friend's son. He's not looking to get his driver's license. And then like, when I was about to turn 16, the only thing I could think of is have to get my license so I could bloody hell take dad's car. And now they don't, it's the Uber generation. They don't care. So it's changing quite a bit. And we've seen all sides of it, right?
Well let me get a second. Also, we're going to keep going a few more minutes, but I know that Sean has to jump on another podcast, a real one.
I get a real
Sean, we'll have more
in the next one. But
we will have more of this conversation. But one thing we want to hear from you is your favorite band and genre, and your favorite concert you've ever seen. 3 questions. Then you can go.
Oh, maybe a better thing. If you're in an island and you are allowed to only take 3 albums, what 3 albums are you taking?
You're overwhelming me now.
Heavy.
As we were talking about classical music and long songs and things, the band that kept coming to mind throughout this conversation was Muse, because they do very operatic, classical, orchestra type compilations that are often longer and very powerful. And I saw them in concert as well. So it's not necessarily my favorite. I kind of like more of the harder edge, like the Blink 182 kind of stuff. And I've seen them before. LA. I am so LA. Just find me in Calabasas where they're hanging out, Mr. Barker. But yeah, I think I'll say Muse just because, funny enough, it was an experience being at the concert, hearing them play.
So which album of Muse? What album of Muse? You're allowed 3 albums. You're
all right,
stuck on an island for the
Muse
entirety.
Albums. The last 3.
I don't think we remember anymore the album because we just listened to one song, as you said before, right? We just pick three songs from an album.
There are playlists, and sometimes they're not even our own playlists. I'm listening to other people's playlists.
Mm-hmm. So Muse. So you're not that old. You're not that old. Because for me, if they didn't start playing in the late 60s, I don't even consider them. So, I go with Black Sabbath. So that's my band.
There you go.
That's what you take into an island, Black Sabbath, all 3 albums of Black Sabbath.
No, not all of them. I mean, I will probably bring The Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. I would probably bring the first Black Sabbath, although there are other good. It's tough. I mean, I'm also an 80s airband guy, so Cinderella, it's a band that I, good old, right? Like a
long cold
winter, a little bit of bluesy shredding and the high-pitched voice, sure. But I love a lot of different music. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I listen to lo-fi, I listen to classical, but at the heart, I probably get some heavy stuff. Iron Maiden, seen Iron Maiden 3 times in concert in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm a percussionist, so I like a good beat, but I'm also a sucker for a good melody. So,
all right, you can go. You're released.
Thanks for releasing me to talk cybersecurity. Have fun, guys.
Good seeing you, Sean.
Can you jump on one of those shows with you, Sean, next time?
Okay, so how about you guys? I think we'll talk about AI and all the other things we wanted to talk about in another session.
Oh, yeah.
Let's stay with this rumination.
Yeah, let's stay with music. The first...
What do you take? What do you take, Alan? Raf, 3 albums.
Let's see here. Well, okay, so first I'll say the first concert the first like commercial concert. So my father was a music professor, so I saw bits of concerts, particularly African music concerts, going back to pretty much when I was born. But the first commercial concert that I saw was Tina Turner. My parents, they were going, and and they brought me along because they couldn't get a babysitter. And so, I was, yay big, and Tina Turner just tore the roof off the place. That was, this was probably like 79. And she was just like, that presence was incredible. Like, she was an amazing performer. So yeah, just to throw a few others out there. Probably the thing that I'll always remember is Miles Davis at the Iron Horse in Northampton a couple of years before his death.
Wow.
There's just like that era of jazz musicians. There's just nothing like them. Like, there's a whole range of those that I saw, but Miles Davis at the end of his prime, but no one touched him. In terms of maybe a few albums, I would probably take I'd probably take an early Pink Floyd album, maybe something like Atom Heart Mother. I'd take an early Bonobo album, because I've seen Bonobo both DJ and live. And he's still putting out albums, but his live stuff, when he brings a band, and there's this mixture of like almost acid jazz and kind of down tempo electronica, is incredible. And then for a third, I'd probably grab an early Orbital album. I listen to a lot of electronica, and there's Orbital in some ways is probably the closest you're going to get to classical music. But yeah, I'll listen to a lot of like drum and bass while I'm working, and Orbital obviously is not. They're more IDM, but yeah, like it would probably be a toss-up between Orbital and maybe one of the extended, compilations from like LTJ Bookham, because the range of folks that he worked with, I can listen. I've done so much development listening to electronica and either like IDM, trip hop, or drum and bass, because I use it to get into the zone. I think with non-verbal music behind me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I always have some music in the background, and a good electronic ambient. It's lo-fi actually lately. I enjoy that. Even if I listen to it with really good headset and lo-fi, it's still enjoyable, like Japanese style Tokyo. It's really cool.
And actually, I might actually have to do something like Brian Eno, Brian Eno's On Land or Music for Airports, because that's Kraftwerk and a whole host of others, but Brian Eno has influenced a whole generation of electronica artists.
Mm-hmm. All right, Carrie.
Soundscapes.
Oh man, I'm all over the place. I mean, so I think for me, I think Pink Floyd Pulse, that album, it basically has got just about it covers every genre, every decade of their music. That definitely is something I'll never get tired. You've got Sketches of Spain, Miles Davis. That album is absolutely brilliant again. Anything from B.B. King. The guy is absolutely brilliant. I'll take anything from B.B. King. Wow. I'm a big blues guy.
Cool. Very cool.
Big blues and jazz guy. So, but again, these are. It's kind of hard, but that's what I would take.
Wow, we really went on some nostalgia here. I really love it. Yeah. So I have a final story. So this few months ago, we were covering InfoSecurity Europe in London, and I just went there a little earlier and was by myself. So I kind of walk all over the places. I mean, I really walk a lot in London. It was June, was beautiful weather. And I realized I was really close. I was in the Westminster area. I was really close to the Battersea plant station, the one in Animals, Pink Floyd cover. So I said, all right, I'm going to walk along the Thames and go take some pictures. And I'm visioning this abandoned, plant station, and it's a huge mall now, right? So you walk through it, and I got excited. I don't know why, but I just got excited. So I started taking out my phone and took pictures. And I mean, it was cool to see it from the other side. I pictured the pig flying over it. And then I crossed the bridge, and it's this amazing brand new mall, like all mixed with technology. You can go all the way up to one of the chimneys.
I think there's an incubator out there too. Yeah, there's an incubator. It's a mixed-use flats. You can.
But they did an excellent job in mixing modern and still leaving the old industrial pieces that were there. So the reason why I wanted to say this is it was amazing, right? To see what they did with that and preserving, because in London, they're doing a lot of that. I've seen like old charcoal deposit near stations that they revamp it and renew it, and they really balance the history with the modern. And I appreciated both. I mean, I appreciated the remembering Pink Floyd album, and I appreciated the new one. So I think the lesson here is I appreciate the sphere, and I appreciate everything in technology that is doing now. It's just, it's not the same.
It's not the same. I'm curious.
Yeah.
I think I'm all I can say. I'm curious. Optimistically curious.
Yeah. I'll say that I think that things go in cycles, and that though we're dealing with a shortening of music, that doesn't mean that as people get comfortable with digital, that consumption can't change or broadcast can't change and things can't lengthen. That if anything, artists, but also people in pop culture, react to the decades before them. And, we can look at the teens and 20s that we're in now as a reaction to kind of the 70s and 80s and 90s and even the 60s, and the notion that as people get into the 20s and 30s and 40s, that they will gradually have reactions to the aughts and the tens or teens, that there will be a point where they'll be going, oh, music was too short in the teens, and we need to do longer things because we control our attention spans. So I'm hopeful that change will keep happening, but also that people always like to rebel against the things that happened in the 5 to 10 to 20 years before, and younger generations want to define themselves anew against that and against their parents. And that cycle ensures that we keep ping-ponging back and forth all over the place. And the only thing that we know is that no one wants to be exactly like their parents, even if they love them.
True. But at least now we have access to all of that, right? So everything is being recorded. We can go now. I mean, I love old school radio. I said that many times. And jazz, and you mentioned jazz. I just love to play a vinyl behind me. Vincent Guaraldi talking about jazz for Charlie Brown and the Peanuts. But I also like to just go on a playlist and say play some jazz from the 20s, the 30s, and hear the scratchy, the different tone of voice. We can do that. We go back to the power of accessing anything we want now. And the beauty is that will be the same 30 years from now. And maybe, yes, the music from now it's considered classic rock. It would just be like something super cool, which, we grew up with that. Of course, we have those memory. The memory from when you're a teenager, they're always stronger than anything else. So,
yeah.
But yeah, cool. Now I just want to go and play some music. I don't know what, but
yeah. Put on a vinyl and listen to some music. Put on a record.
Well,
you pull out the Pink Floyd album.
I think that like we're always going to have this dichotomy between recorded music and live music. Like that can't really change, because there's the sense of like live music as engaging and somewhat unpredictable, and the sense that it's happening in front of you, whether it's, a traveling bard that's come to a tavern, or it's someone who's going off, like, oh, I'm going to play a show at the Palladium for 300 people, or a big spectacle. But there's a sense that live music is an event. It's a doing, it's a being, and that there's a balance between that and the thing that we didn't have, more than 100 years ago, the notion that we can take music with us, that we could sit down and go, okay, I'm going to work and have this in the background. There's a point where you go, okay, someone working and having music in the background is basically royalty, who's like, okay, you guys go play for me. and now anyone can do that, and now anyone can take that with them, and now we have a computer in our pockets, and we can go, I'd like to listen to this. Mm-hmm. And then it appears. So we have a point where we're very spoiled, and that's not a bad thing. We have access, but what we do have to do is chart ways for artists to have the ability to continue to make a living between the live and the recorded. And that may change, but we have to ensure that artists continue to make new music, and that we don't get recursive, and that we don't kill off the ability for young artists to make a living, to go in to become the U2s 30, 40, 50 years later.
But my fear is that with AI, for example, which maybe we'll talk about next time, we are allowing mediocrity to succeed. Yeah. And that was kind of my whole point, right? I mean, if you start putting all the sauces on top of that, there is not the record company that filters who you are anymore. We can all go and play music. We can all write and put it on social media. And now we can leverage generative AI. But I hope that those that excel, they still have the opportunity to be recognized as someone special, like a true artist, and that doesn't just water down and level everything, because that would be really bad for music. There wouldn't be a Tina Turner, there wouldn't be a Pink Floyd, there wouldn't be any other of these. Well, there are amazing musicians nowadays. I just don't want them to disappear amongst the bad one, right?
I think you'll always have excellent artists thriving in any situation, and they'll find ways to use these things as tools to enhance what they have, rather than mask their shortcomings. So hopefully, we will continue to see some brilliant people.
Cool.
One last thing I want to leave you guys with, and there's a whole other discussion around AI, but just a few of the words of Nick Cave when he was asked about AI, because I think that it's very relevant from the perspective of songwriting, and he was quite eloquent in capturing some of this when someone sent him a Nick Cave ChatGPT song, and he basically used that to kind of tear it apart, but he did a good job of explaining why. And I'll just select a few points of this, but these are Nick Cave's words from his Red Hand Files. Songs arise out of suffering, by which I mean they are predicated upon the complex internal human struggle of creation. And well, as far as I know, algorithms don't feel. Data doesn't suffer. ChatGPT has no inner being. It has been nowhere. It has endured nothing. It has not had the audacity to reach beyond its limitations, and hence it doesn't have the capacity for a shared transcendent experience, and has no limitations for which to transcend. What makes a great song is not its close resemblance to a recognizable work. Writing a good song is not mimicry or replication or pastiche. It is the opposite. It is an act of self-murder that destroys all one has strived to produce in the past. It is those dangerous, heart-stopping departures that catapult the artist beyond the limits of what he or she recognizes as their own self. This is part of the authentic creative struggle that precedes the invention of a unique lyric of actual value. It is the breathless confrontation with one's vulnerability, one's perilousness, one's smallness, pitted against a sense of sudden, shocking discovery. It is the redemptive artistic act that stirs the heart of the listener, where the listener recognizes in the inner workings of the song their own blood, their own struggle, their own suffering. This is what we humble humans can offer that AI can only mimic, the transcendent journey of the artist that forever grapples with his or her own shortcomings. The thing I love about this and what he's saying is he's reminding us that the interaction between an artist and the listener is a human interaction, and it's about the artist being vulnerable, understanding themselves, trying to put out something new, struggling with being an artist, and then sharing that and saying, I grew and I made something new. Here's the latest thing I made. Listen to it and find something of yourself in it. And
I would say that about every creative endeavor, right? I mean, storytelling, everything you look at it, I mean, there's got to be some sort of personal experience that you've gone through that gives you the emotions to write that kind of stuff.
Yep. And with that, a lot to think. Subscribe, stay tuned, share it. We'll be back with more philosophical and we hope interesting conversation. Until then, thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Rafael. Thank you, Sean, that left us before. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Good rambling.
Go listen to some good music, whatever that is.
Bingo.
Devo unlocks the full value of machine data for the world's most instrumented enterprises. The Devo Data Analytics Platform addresses the explosion in volume of machine data and the crushing demands of algorithms and automation. Learn more at devo.com. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Redefining Society Podcast, hosted by Marco Ciappelli. If you learned something new and this conversation made you think, then add this show to your favorite podcast player, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and share the ITSP Magazine podcast network with your friends, family, and colleagues. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey.